I'm the founder of Laloo's Goat Milk Ice Cream Company, and I'm going to talk a little bit about goats, a little bit about value, and a little bit about the responsibilities as I see it in being an entrepreneur. I wasn't always an entrepreneur. I started as a film producer. I worked in Hollywood. When you're a producer, it's really about who you know, so you have to keep a great Rolodex. It's about projecting success everywhere, so it helps if you're Zen or tan or both, and you take up surfing or yoga, drinking wheatgrass, whatever you can do to sort of offset the sinning that you're about to commit. And honesty. It's a great virtue, and as Groucho Marx said, if you have honesty, that's great. If you can fake it, then you've made it in Hollywood. So I did that for over 10 years and realized that I was starting to have this empty feeling, and I didn't feel like I was going to have much to show for my career. And I started kind of asking myself, am I happy? And I realized that being a producer had become sort of toxic for me. I wasn't really kind of being my best self at work. I wasn't having great relationships, and I had to kind of look around, and somebody said, you know, you should take the rocking chair test, which I had never heard of. And that's when you project to your future self, and you're sitting in your rocking chair on your front porch, and you look back at your life and sort of examine the choices you made. And at that moment, I knew that something had to change, and I needed a clean slate. So it didn't happen overnight, but with a lot of time and courage, I found myself in a new situation, and that was on a goat farm in Northern California. And it was fantastic because my days were no longer spent sitting in an office in front of a computer. I was outside. I was caring for animals and building fences and taking classes and doing all the things that I'd always wanted to do but never could find the time. And I was really happy, and I realized that the change was good for me. But I realized something else, that I was starting to learn what it meant to add value to the world. And I invented a product. And that was the beginning of my life as an entrepreneur. Within a scant few months, I had sold a bunch of stuff, bought a farm, bought a truck, developed a product, designed packaging, hired 3 employees, and started an office in a small garage in Petaluma, California. And it was really interesting because suddenly I knew a lot about goats. I didn't know anything about goats before. And I realized that that was important, that one of the things I needed to know was a lot about goats. But a more important thing that I discovered was that to be an entrepreneur, you really need to know yourself. And so I started thinking about what it meant to be me and to add value to the world and what that would look like. And I decided that I would start making my business decisions as a conscious consumer. Because as a consumer who was conscious, I wanted to add beauty and happiness to the world, because those are the things that I wanted to get from the world and eventually for my family. And I realized as I was looking around me and making these decisions in my work that I was in love with my job. I was happy, and my job was loving me back. All these people in my garage were happy with each other. Everybody got along. There were, you know, we were in a garage, so we were sharing one small space. So there were no secrets. There were no politics. People weren't siloed off into departments. We kind of were all for one, one for all. And that was about the time that I learned about what added value meant. And in economic and accounting terms, added value simply means the unit labor cost plus the unit depreciation cost plus the unit profit. And that is kind of all that extra stuff that goes beyond the standard for a given product. And I came to think of it as all that extra stuff that is going to make money for us and for the shareholders down the road. So I created a formula for the business. And for me, it was all about making ice cream as close to the source as possible. I had learned about what centralization looked like and what it had done to farms and animals and land and waterways, and how it had created a really sort of bad sense of anonymity for management and no accountability for workers. And I thought from the very beginning, Laloo's was going to be a decentralized company. We were going to do production where the goats lived, make the ice cream where the goats lived, and so that's what we set off to do. That was our recipe for success. And I looked around me and I thought, you know, I'm not alone here. There's an entire industry. It's called the natural food industry. And all these people in this industry are sharing the same values that I have. They're also dedicated to taking all that stuff out of products that the chemical laboratories of the last 30 years had been dedicated to putting in, you know. We were all together imagining a world that had ice cream with no mono and diglycerides, and crackers without trans fats, and milk without hormones. And these were the people that, you know, said things like namaste and knew the oneness of saying it. And I thought, okay, this is a good group to be with. I was happy to be part of that club. And there's even a name for it. It's called a B Corp. And they are a fantastic group that help kind of measure your values as best they can. So I sort of realized that the formula for a value-driven company is when you have people who want to do good working at a company that wants to do good, and the result is good products. And I realized that this could be replicated and should be replicated. But when I started reading all the books, I realized that CEOs weren't really driven by the same things I was driven by. And there was a concept called maximizing profits that was really what was driving a lot of corporations to making mega billions of dollars of profit. And so as I looked at that, I thought, oh, I'm a CEO. I also need to find added value at little or no cost, and I need to figure that out. But what about the unintended consequences, like this one, yogurt that has more sugar than 3 candy bars? You know, wasn't I responsible for making something that was actually good? I needed to kind of start wrapping my brain around that. But I tried to think like a good CEO, and I looked at maximizing profits and figured out that I couldn't really take care of my consumers' needs and wants and desires if I was busy reformulating my product into something with shortcuts that kind of faked the real thing, but, you know, sort of somewhat tasted like it, but was made out of the cheaper additives. I realized that consumers were getting smarter, and they were looking for good products that would make them happy. But there was a chicken and egg kind of conundrum happening, because there was consumer demand, but there's also corporate responsibility, and I wasn't sure which came first. But after working it out, I decided that I like to think of the consumer as the egg, because you can't really blame an egg for wanting to be something more than an egg. And in the food business, there's a saying called "go big or go home." And so when I was looking at these books that I was reading and figuring out that CEOs had made, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars on products, I also noticed the correlation that we were starting to get sick as a society. And a lot of that was directly related to those kinds of decisions. And so the profit at any cost business model was something that I decided I didn't want to participate in. When, you know, you have products like snacks for kids that come on a disposable tray, and the most nutritious thing in it is the napkin, that's when you know that the veil of corporate secrecy needs to be lifted. And, you know, all companies start out with an idea. They go through this process of growth and making everybody happy, including shareholders and including customers. But all that pressure for growth, somewhere along the line, eventually leads to a change. And often around that change comes a decline until somebody has another new idea. The cycle just keeps repeating. It happened to us at Laloo's, and we were doing really well. We got a call from a venture capital company. We love what you're doing. We want to get involved. We can help you grow faster. And that was all awesome news. You know, we thought that's fantastic for success. And then I found myself in meetings where every decision was monetized, where everything that we did had to be counted and agreed upon. And it became harder and harder for management and investors to agree on what those goals were, because some of the things that were important to me just weren't measurable that way. And I started thinking about that question, go big or go home. And the test for me was, or the answer for me rather was, you know, I want to change the question. That was my answer. I don't want to go big or go home. I want to make a big impact. Because I really believe that everything is about values, and corporations can't have values. Only people can have values. And so as an entrepreneur, I sort of believe that the real tests that we should be looking at are the social, the ecological, and the cultural, in addition to the economic. And it's called the integrated bottom line. But so far, there isn't really an industry standard. We're still working that out. And I believe that as entrepreneurs and as consumers, it's our responsibility to push for that in all of our decision making. Because the bottom line is that success is not measured by numbers alone. So be the GOAT, the greatest of all time, and do your best to stay true to your values. Gracias.